Hello and welcome to another episode of Switched On. So we just released an episode not too long ago, but then some pretty major Pokemon news dropped, so we figured we'd get right back to it instead of waiting around another week. I'm your host Ben Lamoureux, and I'm joined by two regulars. Welcome back, Elijah.
Pika Pika.
And welcome back, Jeff.
That's really twisty.
So obviously our main focus for this episode is going to be breaking down the recent Pokemon Direct, but we do have a few other smaller news stories we want to cover first, so we're going to hop into those. And fittingly, we'll kick it off with a news segment discussing the latest Pokemon stories. So first up, a new trailer dropped for Detective Pikachu. It's a pretty lengthy one, actually, so we got a pretty good look at like the action and the story and everything. And it, spoilers, revealed Mewtwo as an antagonist, which if you've played the games, that's not going to come as too much of a shocker.
There's another Mew?
Right. Wasn't one enough? So yeah, like I said, I didn't play the game, personally, the 3DS game, but, I read up on it a little bit, so I knew that, Mewtwo was a pretty important character, so this wasn't too surprising, but, it's still nice to see. Mewtwo's always been one of the coolest Pokemon to me, I think. I've always thought it was a fun one to catch and to battle with and everything, so it'll be interesting to see how they portray it in the movie, like all its psychic powers and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I did play the Detective Pikachu game myself. Sure, like it was pretty light in tone, seeing as it was more advertised to a younger audience. But overall, from what I have seen from the plot being at least spliced here and there in the trailer, it did look to be it does look to be pretty well put together. And of course, I gotta say, just oh man, just like that one Mewtwo moment, I was like, whoa! Like they actually did it. They actually brought him in.
Yeah,
and he's actually like right there, center stage. Yeah. Like that, I think in the game, like his role was more like subtle, like more behind the scenes. But here, it's like no, Mewtwo is looking to play like a major role.
And the hairless look is really creepy too, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost as though he looks like an abomination, like a genetic mutant experiment of some kind.
Would you rather him be fluffy like Jigglypuff?
Or that Lickitung.
Or hairy like Ludicolo.
Oh, Ludicolo.
Oh, yeah. That high definition tongue.
But yeah, so I'm still looking forward to it. The new trailer has me even more hyped, and I was already pretty hyped for it. So I think it's going to be a good one to see. And I've been talking to my brothers about maybe going with the nieces and nephews and everything, getting everyone together. So it should be a fun time.
Ah, yes, initiating them into the world of Pokemon.
Exactly.
Or it's just so you can sneak into a kid's movie without looking too weird, right?
Yeah, and besides, it looks like it's going to be, fairly intense. Actually, Pikachu says a swear in that trailer. Hoo-hoo, so...
Oh my god, he's saying naughty words!
So, speaking of Mewtwo, we also got another Pokemon movie trailer recently. So, this is from... I guess you would call it the animated series, but not in a traditional animated sense. They're remaking Mewtwo Strikes Back in a new sort of like CGI engine. So that got its first full trailer, and we got to see a pretty good look at Mewtwo and Mew and some of the other Pokemon, and then also our first look at like the human characters like Ash and Brock and Misty.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that they were going to be remaking the first movie. I mean, then again, we're talking about Pokemon here, a series that not only has like the main games, it has its own like remakes on the side. So I figured it was only a matter of time that they were going to get around to the movies. But I mean, I'm not wowed, but I don't dislike it either. But if anything, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing Team Rocket's antics, especially with Meowth that they tease at the end with Mew. I figured, okay, this is going to be cute.
Yeah, Meowth should be pretty interesting. I liked the Pokemon models quite a bit, but I was a little less sold on the character models.
Yeah, the characters were kind of, I don't know, they kind of look like cheap like clay dolls almost.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people comparing them to Robot Chicken. I thought that was a surprisingly apt comparison.
Oh, that's a little unfair.
They're like slightly more detailed Robot Chicken.
But yeah, so I'm not quite sure what to make of this film yet. I don't know if we really needed a remake of the movie, but I mean, like I said, I think the Pokemon look pretty great personally. So this will be okay. I won't go see it in theaters, I'm sure, but I might check it out eventually just for nostalgia's sake. And that's, pretty clearly what they're going for. They've been banking on Kanto a lot lately with, Pokemon Go launching just with Gen 1, and then they made the Let's Go remake. And, a few years ago they did that Pokemon Origins, like little mini anime type thing. So, yeah, they've been banking on that quite a bit lately. But, yeah, a full remake of the movie is an interesting choice.
Yeah, and especially this week with Pokemon Go, they brought back a focus on Kanto Pokemon just for a little bit, and I thought to myself, okay, no, you lost me at Kanto Pokemon, and then it's, oh look, we have Pikachu and Eevee with flower crowns, and I'm just like, you suckered me back in with Kanto Pokemon.
Is it going to be like a 1-to-1 remake, or are they going to add like new story details to it at all?
I mean, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be shot for shot, or if it'll be just more, loosely following the storyline. We didn't get that much footage, so it's hard to say, but it definitely seems to be following the same basic premise at least.
Mm-hmm. Up to the moment Ash dies, maybe. Oh, spoiler!
And just from kind of looking at it, it didn't look like they had any newer Pokemon in it or anything like that. So at least that part seems like it's going to stay the same.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they often tease like a new generation Pokemon with a movie, but then again, like so far we've already got Meltan and Melmetal, but who knows? They might sneak something else in, seeing as it does precede the launch of Sword and Shield, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and since it's a sort of a Gen 1 storyline, it makes sense that they just stick with the Gen 1 Pokemon and save on like the resources and costs of creating 3D models for like all of the different gens. So,
yeah. And Togepi.
Yes, and Togepi, that's right. Alright, so moving on from Pokemon news, we just have a couple more stories relating to upcoming games on Switch. And the first one is the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy is launching in April. So that's coming to PC, PlayStation 4, Switch, and Xbox. It's going all over the place. And it'll be on April 9th.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. I've never played most of those games, so...
How about you, Jeff? You an Ace Attorney fan?
Yeah, a little bit. I've dabbled with the series here and there. I've seen the first season of the anime adaptation, and I did pick up the first Ace Attorney game when it first came out on iOS several years ago. So I at least played that from start to finish, but I haven't really dabbled into 2 and 3.
Yeah, I've never really tried the series out, but maybe I'll give it a shot on Switch. I don't know if they're planning like a demo or anything, but I might check it out.
Probably. I'd imagine they'll demo like the first case just to break down the mechanics and everything.
Give you a little taste of the objections.
Yes.
Yeah, with Larry Butts and Frank Saw It.
So then we also have a trilogy of Resident Evil games coming to Switch from Capcom. As we discussed before on a previous episode, 0, 1, and 4 are all coming to Switch in May, but we got some less than thrilling news about that this week. So all 3 of those games are normally $20 on basically every other platform under the sun, but they're going to be $30 on Switch for seemingly little reason.
I thought at first it was just like the dreaded Switch tax rearing its ugly head, but aren't they also like more expensive together compared to other systems too, like that have them on sale?
So typically the so-called Switch tax is just that because physical cartridges cost a little more to make than discs, a lot of times developers, especially small developers, will raise the price for the physical release on Switch. But whether you buy physical or digital, no matter what, it's $30, same price both ways. And 0 is the only one getting a physical release. So like there's a bundle you can buy at retail that's 0 and 1, but you're only getting 0 on a cartridge, and then you get a download code for 1, and it's still $60. You don't save anything by doing the bundle.
I hate it when they do that. Staggered releases in a compilation, just what's the point? Like just to kill resales? Woo, too bad. Just would it really matter in the grand scheme of things? Either way, like it's in someone else's hands, and they're going to resell it however they want, but just... Come on, Capcom, really? I mean, they pulled the same thing with the Mega Man Legacy Collection, so of course they were going to do the same thing with Resident Evil.
Sounds like Capcom knows about the term Switch tax, but they didn't know the specifics of it, so they just assumed that it meant they could charge more.
Yeah, that's
or they just knew they can just charge more anyway.
And yeah, it sucks because like Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, those are both priced normally on Switch. They're just $20. And so I can understand if all three games were getting a retail release and they didn't want there to be a big discrepancy between digital and physical. It'd still be dumb, but I could see it. But only Zero is getting a physical release, and yet for some reason, all three of them have a $10 upcharge. So I'm still planning to get 4. You know, I've been raving about that for a long time, how I want that on Switch. So I'm going to get 4, but I have no interest in 0 or 1, and I'm going to, be grumbling the whole time I play 4.
Yeah, just curmudgeoning your way through.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well. Is it only in North America like this? Do Europe and Japan at least get
no, it's
the three
the
games
same
on
in Europe.
carts?
In fact, it's a little worse in Europe. I haven't seen, like, for mainland Europe, but for the UK, it's going to be £30, pounds sterling, and normally those games on other platforms are, like, £15.99 sterling, I think. So
my God.
It's even worse in the UK. Almost double.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I like did the math the other day. I just pulled out like a conversion program or whatever, and I think it was like they normally cost the equivalent of $23, and on Switch they're going to cost 40.
Yikes.
So yeah, not the best move by Capcom, but I'm glad to see they're bringing more and more games to Switch. I just wish that they would be a little more consistent in their pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for just random news stories. We wanted to keep our little news segment short this week because obviously the main course of this delicious podcast meal is the Pokemon Sword and Shield reveal.
Oh boy. Yeah, I rolled into work that morning and so it's 9 o'clock. I just put on the Direct in one tab and just watch it as it rolls along while I actually do my job. I didn't want to miss the moment that news dropped.
Did you bring earbuds along to work?
Oh, no, we have headphones that work.
Oh, nice. So you can binge Pokemon to your heart's desire without getting in trouble.
Pretty much. Just so long as I got my actual work done, nobody raises an eyebrow.
That's a pretty good situation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're living under a rock, you might not have noticed that we finally got the Pokemon Direct that's been rumored for months. And as we expected, it gave us our first look at the 8th generation of Pokemon games, which are called Pokemon Sword and Shield. So we got a couple minutes of new gameplay, we got a look at the new region, which is called Galar, and we got the reveal of the 3 starter Pokemon. So before we do a deep dive into this, let's just get some quick impressions. What did you guys think of the Direct?
I really liked how they just kind of got right to it, as opposed to in previous Pokemon Directs where they'd spend 6 minutes talking about kind of a retrospective and then 30 seconds of footage.
Yeah, I went back and watched the Sun and Moon reveal in preparation for this Direct, and yeah, it was like a 6.5-minute video, and I think the first 5.5 minutes of it was, like you said, a retrospective. It was just screenshots of every gen in the background, and then it wasn't even really a gameplay trailer. The original look at Sun and Moon was just a logo splash, and maybe the region? I don't remember now. It's been a while.
We saw some concept art. I think of that one hotel on the second island, and I believe one of the birds as well.
Yeah, so we definitely got way more with this reveal than what we got with the Sun and Moon reveal.
And
they kept the retrospective tone down. We still got about 15 seconds of it, but.
Yeah, I think they kind of understood that for the first Pokemon on Switch that they wanted to come out with something big and flashy to show off right away. Whereas with Sun and Moon they had already been doing stuff on 3DS for a little while, and so it was less important to sort of get that first look out there.
Yeah, compare a bang and a whimper.
So the 3 starters we got to look at are we got Grookey, who is the grass type and a monkey. We have Scorbunny, who's a bunny, and he's a fire type, and then Sobble, water type. He's some sort of chameleon or some sort of amphibious creature. He's adorable. So what do you guys think? What do you think of the new starters?
I hate all of their names. They're all horrible names.
I kind of like Grookey, but yeah, the other names are a little iffy.
It's just kind of green monkey.
or grass
monkey.
I thought it was Groovy Monkey.
Or Groot Monkey.
I mean, he's got that little stick, and he likes to bang it around rhythmically, so I'd imagine, his whole theme is going to be Grass Monkey, Funky Monkey.
He's Funky Kong.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm not
I
particularly
need to see
sold
that.
on any of them. I think Grookey and Sobble look okay. I'm not crazy about Scorbunny's design. But, I'll have to see what they evolve into first. I think there's a lot of potential with the whole water chameleon angle for Sobble. That could be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not settled in on a starter yet. I didn't super care for the little CG cutscene we got of them. I thought I don't know if I just didn't care for the art style or what, but everything the smooth look of it was kind of plasticky, and it didn't really do it for me. But I'm looking forward to seeing their actual in-game model, seeing them in motion and see what they look like. I think I'll like them a lot more from that angle.
So if you had to choose right now, without knowing what their final forms are going to be like, would you pick Funky Monkey, Bugs Bunny, or Depression?
Yeah, I probably the monkey.
Yeah, personally, I'm torn between him and Sobble. They're both so good. Scorbunny, sure, but I'm not completely sold on him.
He looks like a cereal mascot.
Yes,
I kind of got a Sonic vibe from him when he came in.
yeah, like a little classic Sonic right there, huh?
Yeah, but yeah, I'm leaning more towards Sobble. Less depression, I feel like more just insecurity.
And terror.
I'm hoping that he just evolves into a giant water dragon monstrosity.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I mean, seeing as the whole region is sort of based on Great Britain, I wouldn't be surprised if they went with a more Scottish angle and went with the Loch Ness Monster.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that'd be a neat angle. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Galar region, based on Great Britain, sort of flipped upside down, and that was something we had heard rumored, but it was also sort of tied up with this other rumor that there was going to be a separate region based on Egypt, and as far as we can tell, that's not true. But yeah, we got this big, beautiful HD map. I think I sent you guys a link to look at that so you could, look at all the locations and stuff. And the map isn't going to be one-to-one with the actual world. It's clear they're just kind of putting important stuff on the map. But it looks really beautiful. It looks gorgeous. And one thing that really struck me is how there's this sort of juxtaposition of the really rural areas where everything's made out of brick and wood and it's overgrown with plants and stuff, and then there's other areas where you have these just metropolises that are almost steampunk looking, or there's this big armored castle area that looks kind of futuristic. So it's really cool to me how it's two different environments kind of clashing against each other, but it works.
I mean, if anything, it's more like the rural areas of Great Britain and the rise of the Industrial Revolution. That's what I felt.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like how all of the really big cities that you see. There's kind of 3 really big cities, and they're all super different from each other. There's one that's obviously London at the top, with the Ferris wheel, and there's the steampunk city down to the south, and then I guess it's. Could be a city that kind of dragon fortress thing in the middle of the map. They're all
I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's intimidating looking.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it might be the evil team's headquarters or something like that.
Yeah, it's possible. I think man, if it is, then they're doing pretty good for themselves because they have the biggest chunk in the map. So I imagine somewhere in there's a gym hiding. We've seen those big stadiums, and I imagine that's probably what the gyms are going to be, because a few of them have had elemental symbols on them, and we can't exactly see 8 on the map, but we can see 6 or 7, I think. And so if you assume that there's a gym inside of that dragon palace, then that's probably where the last missing one is. So hopefully that means we get a dragon gym coming. I always enjoy those. But yeah, so overall the map looks pretty good. I'm wondering if there's more to it that we haven't seen yet, just because, it's obviously, like we said, based off Great Britain, which is, a sizable island that has some other smaller islands around it. And so we see a lot of water on the map and some sort of clouds concealing the edges, and there's even, there's a boat visible on the map. So I did wonder if maybe in that harbor town, if we'll be able to take a boat and then maybe go beyond what the map is showing us currently and visit some other island areas, which I think would be pretty cool, especially as a post-Elite Four challenge.
And I can't wait to go on that boat and visit the Kanto region.
Oh, yeah. Because we haven't visited there enough.
I'm wondering, they could definitely base an extra island off of Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
And have that.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I saw Game Explain speculate that maybe you could cross the Pokemon equivalent of the English Channel and go to the is it the Kalos region that's based off of France?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice.
The Galar channel.
Yeah, across the Galar channel, because I mean they're right next to each other in the real world. So hypothetically, you know, the
Galos channel,
Kalos region should just be a stone's throw away.
Mm-hmm.
And that this could be the other side of that Pokemon War from Kalos.
Oh yeah, I guess
right.
that's kind of possible. I need to go back and re-explore the lore of Gen 6. It's been too long, and I definitely missed too much on my first playthrough. I was just kind of excited to, run through and get the megas and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'll sum it up. 3,000 years ago, man built machine. Machine kills everyone. Flower leaves man. 3,000 years later, they reunite, and he cries.
And he also, somehow opens, or, splits the multiverse or something. I understand the Pokemon timeline has become more complex than the Zelda timeline at this point.
As though such a thing were possible.
I don't know about that. From what I understand, it's just two separate timelines. One where there's Mega Evolution and one where there's not.
Yeah, but I was watching a bunch of theory videos on how Let's Go kind of throws that out of whack, and also Ultra Sun and Moon adds some more complexities to it. But that's a topic for another day.
Pokemon timeline theorizing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One thing I do hope, though, is that the rival trainer isn't always your best friend right out of the gate. I miss the jerk. I miss the next door jerk. They were fun to just one up at the end, after they just constantly get in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the trainers, though, one thing I do love about the internet is that when it comes to the girl trainer, they immediately went with an irate Scottish angle, and I'm just head over heels.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I've been enjoying all of the Scottish Twitter memes set to Pokemon screenshots. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and those who voice them even more. Just
I've also seen that there's already fan art.
Yeah, I mean it's the internet. As soon as the trailer hits, there's going to be a million people working on stuff, and it's a beautiful thing and sometimes a terrifying thing.
Yeah, just minutes after, there's already professional art of the 3 starters and the 2 trainers, and I just think to myself, how did you draw that fast? It hasn't even been 30 minutes.
They're all secretly leakers. They were working on the images before the trailer went.
Of course, that explains everything.
So one thing that I think really stuck out is, it appears to be just an upgraded version of the similar game engine to what they made Sun and Moon on 3DS. But everything's more detailed, and they've continued to sort of lower the camera more. It's not really clear at this point whether you'll have any control of the camera or whether we're still working with fixed angles. But it's definitely lower and more over the shoulder to give it a more sort of immersive 3D feel. And, the environments are a lot more detailed. And this is something that we started to see in Sun and Moon, where there was, more verticality to it. You actually could walk up hills and have it look like you're walking up a hill, because it's not this, top-down angle or this, sort of pseudo 3D, but really 2D, graphics engine. And I noticed, there's just a lot of, dirt paths or little grass paths, things like that, stuff where it's not as clearly segmented, doesn't feel as artificial or man-made. And so I think these games, Sword and Shield, really have the ability to take that to the next level of finally making you feel like you're in a lived-in world. And it's not to the extent that some people were way too optimistically hoping for. I saw a lot of people basically expecting this to be Breath of the Wild with Pokemon in it, and that was never going to happen. But I think from what we've seen from this early footage, this looks like it's going to be a really immersive world, and more so than any of the previous ones.
Now, when you mentioned verticality, the one thing that came to my mind was maybe that's why they designed Galar the way it is. You sort of work your way up, literally from the map, just so to always keep that feeling of you're moving forward. And it's just, I don't know, it was just an idle thought that crossed my mind.
Yeah, I've seen some people complain that they think the map is going to be a little too linear, south to north. I don't necessarily think that'll be the case. It looks like early on you're going to hop on a train that'll take you up further north, and then maybe the world will open up a little bit, and you'll have a little more freedom of which direction to go. And there's, a bunch of cities where there's multiple ways out of it, a bridge to the north or a train to the east, that sort of thing. So, we don't know how much will be closed off, when you arrive at the cities, for example, but there's definitely opportunity for the game to open up a little more and let you, move horizontally a bit. And there's lots of different, train systems, going through tunnels and mountains and stuff where we're not 100% sure where they pop back out. So it's possible that the map is being a little deceptive in its linearity and that we'll actually be popping around the map a little more than it appears. But I do like that idea of, heading up to the Pokemon League at, the top of the island and seeing it off in the distance. I think that's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, I can't wait to fight the champion, the Queen of England.
I saw I don't know if someone drew a little comic of that, and she had corgis as her Pokemon.
Yeah, level 100 corgis.
It kind of looks to me like the map is a little bit small. I don't know if it might be the scale of the art in the map or what. But you can see there's the kind of the beginning area down at the bottom where the professor and all is going to be. And there's kind of this empty kind of expanse in the middle. And then all of the cities and towns are kind of all grouped together right there kind of towards the top.
Yeah, I got the feeling that, we know it's not to scale, and we know there's stuff in towns that, just doesn't appear on the map because it's not big enough. So I especially got the feeling that southern chunk of the map is sort of overrepresented on that map artwork. I feel like in terms of scale, it won't really be that big because it's it's as big as some of the cities later, whereas it's just kind of a small starting town and some farming fields around it. So I get the feeling that we're not seeing this thing scaled correctly. Yeah, so I don't know if the map's actually going to be small. I think part of it's just because it's kind of it's like I said, it's thin horizontally and it's really tall north and south. So I'm hoping there's a lot, we're not seeing, maybe some stuff off screen or stuff, just inside of the cities. I think the cities are going to have a lot more to do in them than what you can tell from the map. And, there might be some stuff sort of obscured by mountains. And like I said, I'm hoping that we get to visit some smaller islands too. That would be a great way to include some extra content.
Yeah, and there's a couple of areas there that are kind of covered by clouds that could hold some secrets in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the right of that steampunk-looking city, there's a pretty decent chunk there that's covered in clouds.
Yeah, and it's kind of like behind the mountains along the coastline. Yeah, they could definitely do some stuff with that. And just below it to the south, there's what looks like a sort of a field along the coastline. And I think Sun and Moon did that too, didn't they? They kind of obscure some things in the early maps with clouds and then sort of reveal more later.
Yeah, I think so. Then there's the mountainous area kind of behind London where there could be something back there maybe.
Yeah, just sort of proportionally to the rest of the map, that actually looks to be a pretty huge chunk. And it's, it's mostly mountains from what we can tell, but, that doesn't stop them from putting all kinds of stuff back there that, maybe we can't access until after you've beaten the Elite Four or whatever. And I think, Jeff, you said earlier, maybe it was you, Elijah, that they could do a post-Elite Four Ireland, which would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about that one new game, that new side game mode they teased. I think it might involve soccer or football, as our European listeners have grown up with. It's just they only tease the uniform and the arena a little bit, but they haven't really gone into much more than that. So I'm curious if there's I'm curious about the side quests to that game, like how Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire had the Pokemon contests, and I think it was in Sun and Moon they had the actually no in the Kalos region they had the little films you could do, and which they also did in Black and White too. So I don't know. I'm curious about this new mode, and hopefully they'll show off more of it in the near future.
That to me looked more like it was kind of supposed to be what they're either that those are gyms or that's what they're using in place of gyms. It might be. I think it could be something kind of maybe between the trials and the gyms, maybe.
Yeah, so it definitely looks to me like the gyms are these stadiums, because like I said, you can't quite see 8, but you can see 6 or 7 of them on the map, so I think those are going to correspond to the 8 gyms. And we saw that scene of a Lucario and a Tyranitar fighting in what appeared to be a gym. So I think what appeared to be a big stadium. So I think those will be the gym battles, but it's possible that there's more to them than just that. Like why have this huge gym area, or why have this huge stadium area for just gym battles? So yeah, it could be tied up into like a mini game, like you were talking about as well. It's hard to say at this point. Yeah, it definitely seems like unnecessary to have the whole cutscene of the kid wearing like the jersey and walking, through the arches or whatever, if it's not gonna be, or if it's just gonna be a gym battle and nothing else. So, and they look pretty elaborate buildings from the outside. So hopefully they'll kind of put some special twist on it. And considering how interested London is, or England and Great Britain as a whole is in soccer, it makes sense for it to be kind of themed around that. But I'm not sure what they'll do exactly. I don't know if this is going to be the new Pokemon FIFA game or what. But
this game's actually is just Pokemon Strikers.
I'd buy it. I didn't really play soccer, but I'd give it a try with Pokemon. So some other points of interest on the map. Pretty obviously in the trailer we saw the like giant like carving in the hillside, the sort of like alien or primitive like god artwork kind of stuff. So I've seen some people speculating that will be related to whatever the sword version legendary is. Presumably there'll be a main legendary for sword and a main legendary for shield. And then if you go just north of that, there's a city that has another one of those stadiums on like a little island in a lake. And then above that, there's this rocky cliff area that has a giant colorful door. And if you zoom in, the door has artwork of a shield surrounded by a bunch of gears. So it would seem that area is most likely related to the shield legendary, which then kind of furthers the idea of the alien artwork being related to the sword the sword legendary. So I'm not sure what to expect from these exactly, but it kind of seems like those are going to be two locations that play heavily into the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the legendary is just going to be Aegislash.
He's going to be both of them.
Yeah, there's no way Aegislash is not going to be part of this region's Pokedex. There is no way.
I've seen the meme of like an Aegislash trying to decide which version of the game to buy. So we did actually have kind of an interesting rumor pop up surrounding these legendaries. So prior to the Direct, there was a bunch of supposed leaks about stuff that was going to be shown off in the Direct, and most of it turned out to be pretty much total crap. A few rumors got a couple things right, but it was mostly stuff you could easily guess. And so one post that's been making the rounds a lot since the Direct was a 4chan post from a few weeks ago that basically alleged that the games were going to be called Sword and Shield and that they take place in a region based on Great Britain. So, so far so good. I think both of those are things that potentially could have been guessed, so I can't say for sure this leaker, has an inside track, but it's worth looking into. And so they have also suggested that the two legendaries are going to be based off of a metal snake and a wooden horse. So yeah, I don't know if there's any truth to that or how that would relate to those two areas on the map, but that is something that is rumored. And then they went on to allege that Gen 8 is going to introduce something called armored evolutions. So I don't know how those will work. I don't know if they'll be like mega evolutions where it's a temporary thing or what. But he says there's going to be armored forms for Charizard, Mewtwo, Flygon, and Zeraora, and possibly some others as well. And that it'll all be tied into the lore of Meltan, who was recently released for Pokemon Go.
I'm just curious as to how if armored evolutions are a thing, how are they going to differ much from, mega evolutions?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. And it would sound like they'd be, almost focused entirely defensive, which, I don't know, that seems a little, one-sided to me. Unless, it's Pokemon Sword and Shield. Maybe this leaker's just missing some info, and there's going to be a temporary evolution that gives you big defense boosts versus a temporary evolution that gives you big offensive boosts, perhaps, and that would play into the Sword and Shield angle. But if not, then yeah, if it's just armored evolutions, that would seem, I don't know, a little strange to me. Seems like it would make it a little lopsided, skews the metagame a little more towards just defensive and stall Pokemon. So I'm not quite sure how to feel about
the impression that I got.
And something else to the leak was that it was tied in with Meltan, I think. The idea that I had related to that is that maybe this is their way of bringing in at this point, kind of just a meme of Pokemon fusions.
Yeah.
Whereas, what if this is a very specific set of fusions where you fuse Meltan with other Pokemon to create those armored evolutions?
And that makes a little sense, especially when you consider that, the way you make Meltan evolve, which, legendaries normally don't evolve, but Meltan, you have to get like 400 of them to fuse together into one being to become Melmetal. So, yeah, that would actually make a decent amount of sense.
And the list of Pokemon just seems kind of odd. Specifically, like, I don't understand Flygon. It just seems kind of random.
I know a lot of people have been, myself included really, have been clamoring for Flygon to get a Mega Evolution. But yeah, like Mewtwo and Charizard already have Mega Evolutions, so it kind of seems like overkill to give them these armored forms as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for them, they just want to do those because those are some of the most popular ones.
For sure.
And then Zeraora, because it's like the most recent legendary from the old game, or from the latest games. They're kind of trying to shoehorn that in, I feel.
Yeah, Flygon does seem a little strange, a little out there. I could definitely see him finally getting the Mega Evolution that people have been asking for, but an armored form would be a strange twist. Although, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Give him a little defense boost, because he's already got pretty good speed and attack and a decent move pool, so... But yeah, I'm not sure if I buy this yet, but I'm interested.
The armored evolutions could also just be, like, kind of alternate Mega Evolutions. So, Charizard and Mewtwo already have 2 different Mega Evolutions, so...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about the whole multiverse thing before, so maybe, like, this is from the timeline that doesn't have Mega Evolutions? Again, it's a topic for, like, another day.
But we have armored evolutions.
Right? Totally different.
So, I would say the one thing about the trailer that I wasn't super thrilled about is that they decided not to stick with the Let's Go formula of Pokemon appearing on the overworld. Now, I'm glad they're not keeping Pokemon Let's Go catching mechanics. I'm glad you battle Pokemon in the wild like you would in a normal, traditional game. I kind of missed that on Let's Go. But I loved having Pokemon appear on the overworld in Let's Go. I felt like it added just this whole other level of depth to the world. It was so cool to get to see like a Rattata running through the grass on Route 1 and a Pidgey, hovering over it and flapping its wings. And then, you get further in the game and you see Ponyta's like trotting in like a herd down the Cerulean bike path or whatever. And dumb Psyducks waddling in and out of water. Like I absolutely adored it. And like I said, this one it's more detailed, and the camera is more like a traditional third-person camera. So they've done a lot of things to make you feel more like you're in this Pokemon world, and I feel like going back to random encounters and removing Pokemon from the overworld is a big step back in that direction. At the same time, I get why they did it, because presumably, unlike Let's Go, this won't be sticking to the original 151. There's probably going to be like 600, 800, 900 plus Pokemon in this game, so it would be a lot of work to create, 3D models for all of them that can like walk around the overworld and interact with it and that sort of thing. But if they could have pulled it off, that would just be huge to me.
And the same thing too for Pokemon following you in the overworld.
Yes,
I kind of miss that as well. But that kind of has that same technical limitation that they'd have to have 3D models for every single Pokemon.
And with following you, since we're shifting away from like the top-down perspective where you're kind of walking on like a relatively simple grid, I think the more realistic world with more verticality makes it a little harder to have like an AI follow you around without getting stuck on fences or constantly having to despawn and respawn in order to keep up with you.
That was one of my favorite things in Let's Go, though, is just seeing what the different Pokemon do and they follow you, and how, like, you switch to, like, Kangaskhan and you ride in his pouch. Or if you're, like, Snorlax, you're, like, just latched onto his belly, riding around.
My neighbor Totoro.
So it would have been interesting to see, like, riding on top of a Groudon or something.
Oh, man, that would be so awesome.
Just, like, it takes, like, 4 steps to cross the entire map.
I'm wondering if they'll bring back a multiplayer feature, kind of like in Let's Go, where someone else can just like drop in and out. But if they're trying to keep this game more traditional, like in like the previous installments, I doubt that that feature would stick around too. I mean, never used it myself, seeing as I've always played alone. But It is fun for, like, I think you mentioned in the last episode when we were talking about control schemes, like, say a parent could, like, just join in with their kid and just play with them, like, in this brand new region.
Yeah, so I think it's probably unlikely just because in past interviews, Masuda has said that they're, treating this sort of like past Pokemon games where they're envisioning Switch as a handheld and assuming that, multiple Switches per house, which I don't think Nintendo's quite to that point yet. But that's kind of what they're going for development-wise. With Let's Go, they knew a lot of people would be playing it on the TV, and they wanted to easily design it for parents to sit down with their kids. But I don't exactly see that happening with this one. But maybe they could put in some local multiplayer features. Two people with Switches in the same room, hop into each other's games, that sort of thing.
Like Pokemon FIFA.
Yeah. That's true. There's actually a lot of potential for multiplayer elements if they do something interesting with those stadiums.
Yeah, like you don't want to buy like the 20th edition of FIFA from EA? Just play Pokemon FIFA.
I mean, I honestly really want a Pokemon soccer game now where every Pokemon has like their own special
there we go.
ability.
Pokemon Strikers.
It'd be pretty sweet.
I almost hope that they don't have that multiplayer in there just because at that point they wouldn't have to design the whole game around being able to control it with one Joy-Con.
Yeah.
Because there were a couple of moments where that you ran into issues with that. Not to mention that you just couldn't use the Pro Controller.
Yeah, that upset me. I love my Pro Controller, so I really hope I get to use it for this game.
I mean, I run into issues with it all the time. Just like at this point, I'm mostly just booting up Pokemon Go booting up Pokemon Let's Go so that I can get Meltan boxes for Pokemon Go. So, majority of the time, I just have my Pro Controller within reach. So then, every 7 days, gotta get up and get a Joy-Con. First world problems.
All right. Well, yeah. Overall, I'd say I think we're all pretty excited for it. There's a lot of questions I still want answered, and there are a few things that I wish were a little different. But overall, I'm pretty freaking hyped for this game. So, I went back and rewatched the trailer in preparation for this episode, and just got even more hyped. So, really looking forward to it. So, before we wrap up, I figured I'd run this past you guys and see what version are you leaning towards getting, if any. And I know we haven't really had many details on any differences or anything, but do you guys have just a sort of gut reaction of which one you want to go for?
I mean, with most of my kind of Pokemon teams that I've made, I'm kind of lean towards more attack-heavy, less bulky Pokemon. So, just based on that, I probably would go with Sword. But most of the time when I pick the new versions, I base it off of like the version exclusives and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to say at this point, but
yeah. How about you, Jeff?
Until they show more of the games, I'd imagine towards or right during E3, which is in 100 days, by the way, everyone. I'm probably leaning more on Pokemon Shield. I mean, I know that, like, the popular opinion on the internet is people going for Sword, but I don't know. I'm curious to see what they'll have in Shield, and, well, someone's going to need to buy it so others can get the version exclusives. So, just being the good guy.
Yeah, Elijah, I liked what you said about, kind of basing it off of your team composition, but I like to have a fairly balanced team with, like, a couple of really bulky defenders, a couple of attackers, and then, like, a support and a healer, so...
You'll have to wait for the third version, then.
Yeah, exactly. Pokemon Gun version. I'll be interested to see if the versions affect, like, which legendary you get first, maybe. Like, I think, didn't Heart Gold and Soul Silver do that, where you could get both, but the version you got determined which one you encountered earlier in the story. So, at the moment I can't really pick one off the top of my head, because I like a little bit of both. Alright, well, I think that does it for our Pokemon discussion, but we're going to be back real soon with another episode, I think. We don't have a day picked out yet, but today is as we're recording it today on March 3rd, is the second anniversary of Switch launching, along with, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So we figured we'll do an episode pretty soon here, just talking about the first 2 years of Switch's life and, some of the games that launched on day one or soon after, and some of our favorite games from the past 2 years. So we'll just have a big old, don't know if you can call it nostalgia if it's for something 2 years old. But we're gonna get all misty eyed about Switch. So look forward to that. Until then, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, and we'll have more soon. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Erimgard, ERIMGARD. Elijah?
You can follow me on Twitter if you want. You won't see much. At EWH1995.
And Jeffrey?
Yep, at Visor Jeffhog, at VIZARDJEFFHOG. I should probably shorten that.
All right, thanks for joining me, guys, and have a good rest of the week.
So long.
Bye, guys.
Laters.